This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
This is what you can look forward to on episode 152 of Skywalking Through Neverland. Punch it.
So we had to design everything with the name Star Rides.
Welcome aboard.
Well, no, she can't be with Krennic in a corner, but she can be with Data.
No, I'm going to talk that down right now. Well, I love it too, and yeah, maybe the Universal Harry Potter stuff is driving Disney to do bigger immersiveness. Great, I love it.
You know, for a second, I thought this story was going to end with Dennis throwing a couple of his Oscars at you.
You know, we're also worried about the puke factor.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Hello, Skywalkers.
Listen. Up to Neverland.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
Wow. Oh, what?
You are skywalking through Neverland.
Hey, Skywalkers! Welcome to
Skywalking Through Neverland.
We are the fun-filled Star Wars and Disney podcast that bring you entertaining stories from the creators and fans. And a big thanks and a giant Wookiee hug to our family of Skywalkers who listen to the show every week, post on our Facebook group, and share the positivity about our adventure through fandom. I am Richard Wolosky, your tour guide through fandom, and once again, that title was given to me by our regular guest, Trisha Barr. So no more irregular jokes, people.
No.
That's not what we said. We said regular. And for those of you who listened to our last episode, you'll know exactly where that was going. And now, everyone, please say hello to my Togrutan sweetie wife, Sarah.
Wait, because I have Ahsoka right here?
In honor of your Ahsoka action figure supplied by the overly generous Matt Clifton.
That's right. Want to give a big shout out to Matt Clifton, one of our Skywalkers. And she is so pretty. What a great sculpt. Like, I love her.
Yeah.
In our Facebook group post, he was posting, I rescue Ahsokas and give them to good homes.
Aww,
Isn't that sweet?
Aww.
So he's always going shopping. He's always hitting Walmarts and stuff. So whenever he finds them, I think he buys them and has a nice stockpile. So
Well, Matt Clifton, thank you very much. And she has found a good home. And she's like our new elf on a shelf.
yes, she is. And she's going to be accompanying me in the kitchen or in the living room or by my desk.
Or
so,
can she be with Krennic in a corner?
Well, no, she can't be with Krennic in a corner, but she can be with Data from Star Trek Next Generation. So I think they'll make an interesting couple.
Remember in Ghostbusters when the streams crossed?
Michael Talon says, snips on a shelf. I love it.
All right, there you go.
Oh, snips on a shelf. Okay, we're totally using that.
Next to Krennic in a corner.
Yep. Snips on a shelf, Ahsoka on the sofa, says Jason Collier. Oh, goodness.
All right, now we are recording this from Long Beach, California on January the 10th, 2017. Now, gotta ask you once again, what time is it?
Oh, I was not prepared for this.
It's even right there in the notes.
Really? I don't look at the notes beforehand. No, I'm just kidding.
That's obvious.
Hold on. Here we go. Oh, wait.
Sorry, people.
Gotta put the sound on.
It's 1:33. Good afternoon.
Uh-oh, we're late today. 1:33. Oh, and I want to say as a side note, Skywalkers, if you are listening, we love it when you tweet at us during the show. We are at SkywalkingPod on Twitter. Oh, Christopher Marino says it's 8:33 on Wednesday for him.
Oh.
Because he's right now.
Oh,
is on the other side of the world.
Does that mean that Christopher Marino is really Doctor Strange?
Yes.
He's time warping.
Uh-oh.
All right, now, everyone, listen to this sound. Who recognizes that sound? If you guessed the Star Tours chimes, then you are correct. But what does that mean? That means that we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the original Star Tours attraction at Disneyland on this week's episode.
Woohoo!
Now, how many of you Scope Walkers have seen or have been on the original Star Tours?
Well, Jeremy Hunt says it's his text tone, so I'm assuming he's been on the ride.
Oh, me, yeah. Well,
Oh,
you know
and
what?
Justin Smith says, me.
If you are a fan of
And
the
Lady-
original Star Tours, you are going to love this episode.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have not been on the original Star Tours, oh, well, it'll still
We're
be
sorry.
fun. It'll
Actually,
still be fun.
you can go to YouTube and watch it.
That's very true.
Although it's not the same.
Yeah. What was supposed to be a simple trip to the forest moon of Endor turned out to be an adventure that took guests speeding through comets and part of the destruction of the Death Star.
Comets. Comets.
The destruction of the Death Star. But how could that be?
I don't know.
How could that be? Because this takes place after Return of the Jedi. But yet there's another Death Star. Well, we have that answer later on.
Now, because we're celebrating the Star Tour's 30th anniversary, we are going to be talking with the media producer and casting director of Star Tours itself, Mark Eades. He's the Imagineer. He was there from the very start. So he's got lots of great stories about Anthony Daniels, Pee Wee Herman, and a unique perspective of the upcoming Star Wars land, because we couldn't not talk about Star Wars land with him.
Yeah, so many great conversations in that one discussion. So you'll definitely have a good time with that. Now, our fairy-podmother, Margaret Kerry, is also back in her Ask Tink segment. Donald Wicks shares a Skywalker story. And we have Shout-Out, a Skywalker of the Week by the under-the-weather Rob Dellinger. Rob, hope you feel better. But now, here are things we want to share.
Things we want to share. Things we want to share. Things we want to share.
So tomorrow we are seeing Rogue One in 4D, which is super exciting, and it'll be our 5th time seeing Rogue One, but our first time in that 4DX craziness.
So we'll have seen it in 4D. We'll have seen it in 3D.
Yes.
And
3D laser IMAX, right?
yes, at the... Oh, no. Oh, and Rick is watching, too. At the TCL Chinese Theater IMAX. Did I get it?
You got it!
Oh, someone says happy birthday, Rich.
Lady Hana Solo.
Lady Hannes. Oh, well, thank you very much. My birthday is this Monday, January 16th. What is 4D anyway? Someone asks. 4D has that totally immersive feel where
the seats move.
The seats move. They rumble.
There's smells.
There's more of a sense around for the sound.
Yeah, there's lights that come out, like laser lights, I think.
Yeah, so
Seats
I know
rumble.
the big thing is the speaker system, where it's like, I'm not sure how many channels, but there's so many more channels that really makes you feel like those sounds are coming all around you. And last year we missed The Force Awakens in 4D, and I was so upset.
Yes, we did.
So tomorrow, Wednesday, is the last day for Rogue One at the downtown LA Live theater.
Yeah, the Regal
Yeah.
something.
So excited to see this. And it'll be our 5th time, which is really embarrassing. Only 5 times.
Yeah. So exciting. So in preparation for this, we have been reading DK Publishing's Rogue One, The Ultimate Visual Guide, dun, 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 which is a great coffee table book. It is gigantic, which works because there's cross sections in here. And let's see. So Pablo Hidalgo wrote this, and it's illustrated by Kemp Remillard.
Now, every time we see Rogue One, we always look for different things or listen for different music cues. It's always for a different reason. But this time, there's so much really awesome information in this guide that I never thought to look for or knew the background of. So it'll be fun having this as our like companion piece. Of course, we'll need to bring a flashlight or a cell phone to look at the pages as we watch the movie.
Oh, if we were going to bring this, I should have had seats way in the back. Oops.
Now, there are breakdowns of planets and characters and more characters and Rebel Council members and more characters and servants of the Empire and more characters I never knew existed. Rebel outlaws.
Well, okay, so did you have a favorite page?
You know what? Let's go to this page right over here.
Oh, no. That's going to be my favorite page.
This is the page entitled Jin's Toys.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And Jin's got actual Star Wars toys. And you know what? I'm going to overlook the fact that she opened up all of them. There's not a single package toy there.
Well, I think she made them herself, or her parents did.
And they're Star Wars toys, meaning that they're characters within Star Wars. Only, of course, she's not naming them Star Wars characters. Like, for instance, she has a stormtrooper that we all saw in the trailer or the Entertainment Weekly picture of the Death Trooper holding a stormtrooper doll, which she calls Stormy.
That's so cute.
And now I gotta wonder, why would Jin have a stormtrooper doll?
That's true. That seems odd.
That seems very odd.
But you have stormtrooper dolls, and they're the bad guys.
Well, right, but if I were living on, hold on.
Yeah.
If I were living on
Urso Homestead.
If I were living on Lamu, I wouldn't have a toy of a stormtrooper. These are tyrannical soldiers of the Empire. It's, I'm not going to make any historical analogies because we can all see where that's going.
Oh.
Now, she also has a toy of a Wampa. Mm-hmm. There's a Wampa over here.
I know.
Or is this Moroff that we see in the holy city of Jeddah?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like the big
Wampa
white
character? Yeah,
guy?
the one we're all excited about, but he just was relegated to the background.
Right. Wumpy.
Yeah. And she's got a toy of the Shack, the creatures from Attack of the Clones that Anakin was riding while trying to woo Padme in the infamous Sound of Music scene. And she's got an IG-88 doll. Oh, she's got a Tauntaun toy.
She does, although it says it's a snow lizard.
Which is what they called it during production on The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, look at that.
Do you know where Jin got this toy, Tauntaun? Celebration 5. And she's got a Loth cat.
What's funny is there's no licensed toys.
Well, yeah, she has the Imperial Troop Transport, the 1979 Kenner Classic toy.
I don't see that on this page.
No, it's right over here.
It's not right here on Jin's toy page.
She does have
I don't think so.
There you go. See, Imperial Troop Transport.
Okay.
Okay, now close the book.
Okay.
Close the book.
Well, can I go into one of my favorite pages?
Is it the one with the Imperial Troop Transport?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, because when I originally saw this book and I flipped to the front where it was talking about what stuff there was, there's a chapter called Death Star Plans. And so that immediately excited me.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I went straight to that and I thought it was pretty cool.
So what about this excited you?
Okay, well, I've always been intrigued since reading Catalyst and learning how much Kyber crystals are used in the Death Star and knowing that there was this puzzle to solve between Kyber crystals working as making the Death Star an ultimate weapon, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I always wondered, what do these Kyber crystals do? What was the solution? Because remember, the Kyber crystals in that book were actually misbehaving.
Right.
Yeah. So it's what did he finally do to make this work? And if you read some of these Death Star plans, it says there's a super laser lens, which is an array of artificially conglomerated crystals, creates an amplification field that unites the tributary laser streams into the cumulative planet-shattering blast.
That's what I just said.
Right? So there's not what I thought was there was maybe one Kyber crystal in the center, but that's not true. What they actually did was there's a laser that comes from the center of the Death Star, but then there's Kyber crystals aligned on the circle of that Death Star array, and they have to actually be, ignited at certain time sequences in order to work. And so when you see all the cuts of the guys or igniting the weapon,
right?
Those I always thought that was just one area.
Primary ignition?
Yeah, I always thought that was just one area, but what I think that was depicting was, according to this visual guide, a bunch of different areas around the array that there's different guys igniting the crystals at different times.
That sounds complicated. No wonder they needed Galen Erso to do all this. They couldn't get Bob the Builder.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to do that.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool. That was something I would never have been able to figure out without this ultimate visual guide.
Cool. Now, go to page 72.
Okay.
Because one thing that always stuck out to me while watching Rogue One were these Jeddah pilgrims. Now, the pilgrims that I have in mind are the ones that look like the Emperor's Royal Guards. They're ones in the red. The red. Yeah,
with the square heads.
They have square heads.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead and
read this?
Even having this visual guide, I still don't know who these people are.
Okay. All right.
So this is the description for the Red Jeddah Pilgrim.
Well, this is a description of one of them called Tashdor Ni. So, a towering Lordian, Tashdor Ni cloaks his natural scent with the smoke of burning incense, which permeates the heavy fabric he wears. Swathed in the vermilion vestments of the Brotherhood of the Beatific Countenance, Ni and his fellow followers don concealing robes that act as a physical vow of silence, occluding the natural expressiveness of their stances and movements.
Okay. Now, if that wasn't confusing, there's another description of these characters. Now read this one, see if it's any more clear.
Okay, Path of Enlightenment. Place of pilgrimage. Several long-standing faiths, such as the Nin Orthodoxy, the Zealots of Susan, and the Firmists, consider Jeddah a holy site.
Is that any more clear?
Well, not exactly, but what I'm getting from this, and if you read Lyra's description, red seems to be the color of the Force, or people who believe in the Force.
Right, but you'll look at these characters, and they look too much like the Emperor's Royal Guards, so why go there? I thought they were the Emperor's Royal Guards, but in more of the Jeddah attire. Now finding out that they've got nothing to do with the Empire confuses me. I don't know if that is fan service. They want to have some of these background characters look somewhat familiar. I hope that's not the reason. Now, one more thing I want to point out is something about Cassian I just learned.
And you know what? This caught my eye too, but I'll let you say it.
On his jacket, he's got a transponder, but underneath that transponder is what they call a lullaby suicide pill.
Whoa.
Whoa.
What?
So I guess if Cassian is ever captured single-handedly by the Empire, he can just reach out to this transponder, snap off this pill, take it, and no one's ever going to be able to interrogate him.
Although if his hands are shackled, I'm not sure how easy that is.
Yeah, a lot of really interesting facts. So how about, that was my final fun fact. How about you?
Okay, well, actually, if you read it through this book, which I skimmed a lot of it. I did read through the front. Oh, actually, in the front, what I really love is big picture stuff. Like, I think it's so cool that they have an overview and a galactic map. I probably spent 15 minutes studying this page, just seeing where all the planets were in relation to each other. You know, Tatooine is on the outer rim. Of course, Coruscant is right in the core. But then it's right, that's kind of what you know. But these other planets that you have come to know, you know, you find out where they are in relation to the galaxy. And I think that's cool. Especially, like, Geonosis is kind of over on the corner, which is how the Empire was able to create a Death Star there. Also, I learned that actually there's some information that you can string together that you see coming to light in the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. And that is where the Death Star is made. It started production over Geonosis. However, it says here that Saw Gerrera and his gang got too much information, and so it was moved.
Oh.
So we just saw a Star Wars Rebels episode, which is either showing that or leading up to that fact.
Yeah. Well, he's already on Geonosis on last episode of Rebels.
And he was just doing some recon there, which means I guess they already moved the Death Star over, and I forget where it moved to.
Well, you know, that answers a lot of questions. I was wondering, why is Saw on Geonosis?
It's because they were getting info.
And now I know.
Isn't that cool?
That is very cool.
If you follow the little threads of info in here, you can really learn a lot.
Yeah.
And spend a lot of time.
Yeah, really. Okay, I got one more honorable mention.
Okay.
That Chirrut Imwe, he wears a starbird symbol. Something like those. Yeah, it's the ancient starbird that the Rebel Alliance had adopted.
Okay.
For their symbol. Wow. But now, didn't Sabine come up with that in Rebels?
I thought she did. Does the symbol look like Sabine's?
Yeah. Well, it's the Firebird, the Phoenix, that later on transformed more into the Rebel symbol that we all know. Unless Sabine had already known that symbol and was just copying it. But I was under the impression that Sabine had made up that Firebird symbol.
Well, I guess we'll have to have a visual guide to Star Wars Rebels now.
Yeah, or we you know what? Let's tweet out to our good friends Pablo and Chi.
Okay.
Chi. Leland.
Leland Chi.
Yeah.
And Suara says that was just her own variation of it.
Right. That's what I'm now thinking after now talking it through. She must have seen it and then done her own variation.
Okay. Now, while this book is written to be in universe, there's actually some chapters at the end that go into the making of Rogue One. So concept art in production, and they have some behind the scenes pictures, my favorite of which...
Oh, this is the most awesome picture in the whole book.
Yes. At Canary Wharf, which is a stop on the London subway, they have stormtroopers de-helmetized. They're just taking a break, taking a rest right there by Canary Wharf. So that's really cool.
I know they were shooting this overnight. Oh, someone was there.
Oh, Ray Gobio.
Yeah. This must have been like 3 a.m.
Yep.
And they're in between setups.
Mm-hmm.
So all these stormtroopers are looking... If it had been like us fans, we would have been bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
No sleeping there. All right. And I know I keep saying that this is the last thing we're gonna mention about the book, but there are so many fun nuggets in here. That someone on Facebook had pointed out one of the pictures of one of the fallen stormtroopers on Jeddah, and it looks like he has holes in the bottom of his boots, like you would. Like the Star Wars action figures would have to put them on their pegs.
Wow.
So someone was thinking that...
Which page was this?
I don't know.
92.
Maybe this was one of these inside jokes, but looking at it right here, doesn't really look like the round pegs from the Kenner action figures. But if it's supposed to be that, highest kudos to the costuming department.
No kidding.
Highest kudos to them. That is so awesome. Or as my Bostonian self would say, that is wicked awesome.
Wow.
So want to point that out. So any scope walkers or Facebook watchers have this book, and do they have an opinion on those holes in the bottom of the Stormtrooper boots? Or people listening right now, the Skywalkers listening, tweet at us and let us know. Okay, one more fact and we'll move on.
Okay.
That I didn't know there were so many headless and faceless characters in Jeddah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently Jeddah's got a couple of background characters with half a face, no head.
No head?
Yeah, I know we had, when we were talking to Anthony Bresnikan, we had pointed out one of those characters, but one character has got no face from the nose down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So would you recommend this book?
I would recommend it highly.
Okay.
We were planning on mentioning 2 or 3 fun facts, but there are so many really awesome things.
Yeah, like half an hour later, we're still talking about it. So go get this book, you guys, because there's a lot of fun nuggets, and I'm sure you can follow some of those threads of information and make you look awesome for, Star Wars Trivia Night.
Yes. All right, with that, let's just give everyone some podcast cruise updates before we move on with our discussion with Mark Eades, who once again was the media producer and casting director on the original Star Tours, which is now celebrating its 30th anniversary.
Woohoo! Okay, yes, this is things that I would like to share. And, in January, we're all making our travel plans for the year, right? So, Skywalkers, we want to let you know, if you haven't yet signed up or decided whether you want to go on a cruise with us, well, we're going to give you a little more info here and hopefully some incentives. So, September of this year, 17th through 22nd, 2017, we are going on a 5-night Skywalking Disney cruise to Baja, Mexico on the Disney Wonder. Now, just to let you know, the Disney Wonder has been refurbished as of November 2016, so it'll be not even a year since its refreshment, and it's got all new things, and
it'll still have that new carpet smell.
Indeed. So it's going to be, and this is the most exciting thing, a Halloween on the High Seas cruise.
Oh.
And I was just reading up again on what this means. So, are you ready?
I am ready.
This means there's going to be Halloween decor.
You had me at Halloween.
In the main area, where you enter and say hello to everyone and you have grand balls, there's a Halloween tree that transforms throughout the week.
Just take my credit cards, take my cash, take everything.
Right? There's going to be a masquerade party So bring your costumes. Costumes are allowed on this trip. There's going to be pumpkin carving, which is awesome. We finally get to do pumpkin carving before Halloween, sweetie.
This is more information than I even knew going
I
into
know.
this.
I read up on this. Now, there's going to be a Nightmare Before Christmas viewing, a sing and scream version.
Oh.
There's going to be campfire ghost stories and also an adults-only party with a costume contest, which is super cool as well, if you're not bringing the kids. Now, this is a family-friendly event, so if you do have kids and you want to go, please, you can. So, and because if you join us for this particular cruise, we are doing this in a joint podcast meetup with Stories of the Magic and Randy Crane. And we will have some podcast meetups planned, as well as some offshore excursions with our group that you can choose to go on as well. Everything is going to be, choose as you go, basically. But if you are a part of our group, what Randy is able to do is schedule us to eat at the same times, even at the same dining banquet table and things like that. It's going to be awesome. So what I want you guys to know is that there are only 18 more spots available in our group. So if you're on the fence, now is the time to book and join us for this fabulous Halloween on the High Seas Disney cruise.
Oh, there's a whole lot more information than I didn't know, because apparently some more people had signed up that I did not know.
Yeah.
Oh, this is gonna be the meetup.
We have a group we have a group that's coming already, but if you want to join us, you're free to do that. There's 18 more spots available.
All right, and now the best things about the whole payment process, and I don't want to quote any prices because I know the longer you wait, the more expensive
the price
it is.
Goes up.
But what we've been doing is paying off some every month.
Right.
So when it comes to cruise time, it's we're done.
Yes. Also, as a note, it is good to book now while the price is lower, and I think a month and a half before the cruise you can say, no, I can't go, no questions asked, and you get all your money back. So it's almost like a no obligation, down payment on the cruise, which is really nice.
How can you afford not to do this?
I know. So how do you join us, do you ask?
How do we join you?
Well,
I'm not sure whose voice that was.
You can join us. You can get more info. You can join us. You can get more info by emailing our friend, podcaster, and cruise buddy, Randy Crane, at cruise@storiesofthemagic.com. Once again, that's cruise, CRUISE, just in case I sound like I'm saying something different. So you can get a free, no obligation quote from Randy, and please comment in that email that you are with Skywalking Through Neverland group. So Randy Crane knows you want to be a part of our group, and he can give you all sorts of comprehensive information. And just to let you know, with that email, of course, you're not committing to anything. You're just getting more information. And once again, if you decide to put that down payment down, if you need to back out for some reason, you can.
All right. And it's a Halloween cruise.
It's a Halloween.
Oh my goodness, so much fun.
I know.
All right, now with all of that, let's move on to our discussion with Mark Eades as we look back into the 30 years of Star Tours.
Now, in a kingdom very, very near.
Do hurry, the passengers are boarding.
Prepare yourselves.
Welcome aboard!
For the ultimate Disneyland thrill attraction from the imagination of Disney and George Lucas. Because now, the adventure is real. Star Tours at Disneyland. In all the universe, there is no greater thrill. Now open at Disneyland.
It was 30 years ago, January 9th, 1987, that Star Tours opened at Disneyland in Anaheim, California. In Disney's second collaboration with George Lucas, right after Captain EO, Imagineers went to work creating this innovative 3D flight simulator attraction.
Here now to help us celebrate the 30th anniversary of Star Tours is Mark Eades, who served as media producer and casting director.
Hey, Mark!
Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for having me on board.
Oh.
Well, thank you for being on board the Star Speeder. We're going to call 3000.4.
Sure.
0.3811672. Now, it's been 30 years since Star Tours first opened. Does it feel like it was just yesterday?
What's that, Sonny? It takes me back, and I'm going to correct something that's not really known very well out there in the universe. We actually started working on the simulator project way before Captain EO, and we were actually working on the Star Tours attraction before Captain EO kicked off. And what became so funny during the project was because Captain EO was largely being done by the studio, which were kind of fairly new people under the Eisner regime at the time. We were kind of under the radar in terms of being watched by the management at the new corporate managers in terms of Eisner and Wells and those people. So we had actually created, the old memo forms, because remember, this is back in the days before email. So we created memo forms that said Star Tours in spite of EO.
Oh.
Now, were you working on the ride before it became Star Tours, when it was the Black Hole experience?
Well, it was never really any experience. Randy Bright, who was my boss and mentor, who brought me over to WED, and it was WED back then, called me down to the office one day, and this was like way back in late 83, early 84. And I was working on basically the only project we really had going for the most part at that time, which was American Journeys at Disneyland. And I was the show producer on that. And he said, "What do you know about simulators?" And I said, "Well, I know they use them to train pilots. Why? Do you think they could be used in a theme park attraction?" I said, "I guess. Why?" He said, "Well, why don't you go research it a little bit?" And that was how I kind of got started with doing things with simulators.
Huh.
And so, I followed the way we were supposed to do things, because at the time we were kind of cutting back a little bit. We were still in the post-Epcot phase, and the company was struggling, and we hadn't quite gone through the management change yet. But I went and set up we had money for research, and I set up what's known as a job number, which is an accounting thing that I could go off and research simulators. And that's what I did on a part-time basis, as we were producing the Circle Vision attraction at Disneyland, which was known as World Premiere Circle Vision, which was also, oddly enough, the first attraction that would have two different shows during the day, because it had both American Journeys and Wonders of China. So we were kind of the groundbreaking for a lot of things that are kind of accepted now.
Mm.
But so over the next year, I played with simulators, essentially. I flew an F-16, sort of.
In a simulator?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
There was a Duran company had done these little moving seat things that seated like four people, where you could go ride a roller coaster without riding him, and damn near threw up on it. That was up at Pier 39 in San Francisco. And one of the other things we got to do is, because we based in Orange County, we had arranged where we could go do the helicopter simulator that was at the old Marine Corps Air Station over here in Tustin, California. And we went over and did that. It took me a few tries to get the helicopter off the ground. And I never did land it successfully. Man, I have nothing but respect for helicopter pilots. Now, out of that, this was, of course, when the management upheaval was going on. But out of that, I basically, one of the things, well, let me back up. One of the things that we all loved, of course, this was when Return of the Jedi was going to be coming out and all that, right? And this was 1983, Return of the Jedi had come out, and we were all loved Star Wars, of course, as Imagineers and things like that. And so at the end of that effort on my part, basically you write a report. So I wrote a memo, and in that memo, I said, I used how we could use simulators. I sketched out some examples of how I thought we could use simulators in theme parks. And it was sort of kind of like the Flight to the Moon mission to Mars had been done. I said, if you want to, you have two choices to make initially. If you're going to admit it's a simulator in Tomorrowland, then you have to make it a simulator. So you have to say, okay, we're going to take you on a simulated flight experience. And then when you get on board, of course, things never work perfectly, and you go on this interesting flight to wherever. So that's option A. Option B is you don't give away that it's a simulator and you go someplace, whatever place that may be. And then I basically arranged for an unofficial contest. There was no prize, but asked everybody at Imagineering, there weren't as many back then, to submit story ideas. And there were a lot. Some of them were Star Wars, etc. And I said, wouldn't it be fun if we could take a ride on the Millennium Falcon? And then when we land, we are disgorged off the base and right into the cantina from Mos Eisley.
Oh,
wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And but in option 2, I also said, if we're not going to say it's a simulator, then we have to build up the willing suspension of disbelief. And the analogy I used was pretend you're going to an airport. When you go to an airport, you think you're going on a plane. Are you really? Because when you go out to the gate, you're looking out these windows where you see this busy airport. Well, those windows are really giant rear projection screens. And then you go down this narrow tube, you can hardly see out a window, that makes you believe, when you look out the one little window on the jet plane way thing, you see an airplane, but that's a video screen. And then you get inside this tube and you have all these windows, but they're really all just video screens. So, but that was the analogy I used. So I said, we need to, if we're going to say it's not a simulator, whatever it's going to be, we need to help suspend the disbelief by showing people the vehicle they're going to be flying in or going underwater in or whatever, and make them think, okay, that's what we're going to get on, because we're going to have to disguise the simulator somehow. So whether it's going through a maintenance bay or a hangar or whatever, we need to sort of play that kind of approach to it. And then we need to have a safety video, just like you would on an airplane, and play that whole thing up. And then we need to just, not show that you're getting on board something that's supported by hydraulics. The side of it needs to look like whatever ship that we've trying to convince you that you're getting inside. And that's basically became the treatise for what we followed once it became a Star Wars universe-based attraction. Wow. Now, of course, what happened after that was the management upheaval took place, and we had already started the process of buying a simulator just so we could play with it, and putting it in a building in the back, and that had already gone through. And then the regimes changed, and then at some point, well, I know when it happened and why. Eisner and Wells finally came over to WED, and a lot of stuff was shown, and they said, oh, we like this thing, and we like the idea of the Star Wars universe. And Eisner got in touch with with George Lucas, and eventually they made a deal. And once they made a deal, a bunch of us sat in a room and brainstormed ideas, and out of that eventually came the Star Tours story, which was about 11 minutes long at that time, which of course we knew we couldn't do.
How long is the actual ride?
Well, in the simulator itself, it's around 4 minutes and some odd seconds, depending. I guess in the current one, it's pretty much the same. It was about 4 minutes and about 15 to 16 seconds once the thing starts moving, etc. I mean, one of the things you have to think about is throughput.
Yes.
And with that thing, it could get carried away real easy. And we got it down to, you have to count load and unload time, and making sure the seat belts are set and all that fun stuff. And so one of the things that we did was we made sure that we made everything part of the story. So hence when you load and unload a simulator that's on hydraulics, for safety reasons, the hydraulics are essentially off. It's down at what's called a non-operating position. It cannot run because you're boarding. It's a safety interlock.
Right.
So we realized we had to build in to the story the whole bit of boarding and the time for those gangplanks to get out of the way, and then build into the story the idea of going up the elevator, because that's the hydraulics have been actuated again and it's moved up to the operating position. But you're going to feel that. So you have to build it into the story. So everything in there, we really did a heck of a job of saying, okay, everything has to be a part of the way it's not just story, but it had to be part of the experience. Because I think story-based attractions, yes, but it's really about the experience. So everything had to have a reason for being, whether you liked it or not. And if you were stuck with it, then build it into the experience, make it work, make it, okay, so what? We're moving up an elevator or whatever. And that's sort of the background on how Star Tours came about. And out of that brainstorming meeting, it was decided that Tom Fitzgerald would be the lead in terms of being the show producer. But because I was kind of the film guy by then, I would be the media producer. And I had also been given the role by Randy of being the casting director for WED, hiring the voice talents and things like that. So, yeah, I had to find the voice of Rex, which was a challenge. But that's kind of the background of how the simulator eventually became Star Tours. And, of course, eventually it was used on Body Wars, too.
Now, it's funny that you were pitching the idea of a Millennium Falcon ride and then ending up at the Mos Eisley Cantina, because that's what they were thinking about doing with the new Star Wars land just a few years ago before they decided to rearrange everything and rewrite it. So, really, you were 35 years ahead of yourself.
That's exactly basically what they're doing. I don't think it's going to be the Mos Eisley Cantina, but I understand there's going to be a cantina with blue milk, and you're supposedly going to ride the Millennium Falcon. And it's like, okay, here I am, 30 some odd years after we were playing with simulators at WED. They're doing what I thought would be really cool. I mean, who wouldn't want to ride on the Millennium Falcon?
Oh, definitely, right. Definitely, yeah.
I mean, when I'm a bit of a Trekkie too, so when they had the Star Trek thing in Vegas, I was like, well, I'm going, and we went up there, and I went on that thing, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. I was disappointed because they didn't quite execute it as well. Everybody was doing simulators by then, and we have to go on a simulator thing to escape from the Enterprise. Why don't you just beam us back? I wanted to see the engine room and sick bay and everything else, but I'm complaining now. Okay.
Okay.
You know, we had put out on our Facebook group page that we'd be talking to you about Star Tours, and we told our listeners, if you have any questions, now's the time. And boy, did we get some questions. Jeremy Hunt, he asks, how was Paul Rubens cast as Rex?
Hi there. I see they're loading our navigator R2-D2, and then we'll be on our way. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight.
Well, that was really its own saga, if you will, with multi-episodes.
All right, we're ready.
Oh, my.
Okay, so we had this droid, and we had him named, and we had to find a voice for it. Well, of course, that's my job. It was tough. I mean, it's people don't understand how hard it is to cast a voice for something, particularly when it's a new character. It's really easy when it's an existing kind of character. You just have to match it, right? Mm-hmm. So here you have a brand new character, which, WED really wasn't doing a lot of. And to be honest, at the time, Disney Animation wasn't doing a lot of, and they were used to using stars and things like that and whatever. So we had this character. It was designed, and we had a write-up of what it was. It was kind of this manic, full of itself, knew what it was doing, but really didn't character. And, okay, that's great. Let's go find a voice. And we kept trying voice after voice. We tried a few people around WED just to give us something to work with, because we had to time the bloody thing, and Tom did it, and then we had several others. Then we started bringing in some people, including some classic standbys, as I call it, that we'd use. One was Frank Welker, who's done a lot of brilliant cartoon voices.
Yeah.
We tried female BJ Ward, who actually did a lot of safety spiels at Epcot. I mean, I was bringing her in probably once a month because they kept updating the safety spiels. Well, every time you turn around, a lawyer rewrites them because they find something else they want to cover. But that's just the way of the world. And we tried different people. I would get recommended, well, let's bring them in, and we'd bring them in for a day and record it. And Billy Barty came in and tried out for the role. And not because he was a midget, which has always been his concern, but because he had an interesting voice, right?
Yeah.
And just nothing worked. It just didn't work. And of course, George Lucas was going to have to sign off on the voice too. Now, meanwhile, of course, I've already hired Anthony Daniels to do C-3PO, and I had to make that deal and all that kind of stuff. That's easy. Here you're having to create a new voice for a character. Right. Well, part of what I used to do back then, because, you're just, nowadays I don't hardly go to movies. Back then I'd go to movies all the time because you did, and I'd just go by myself because never know, I might hear a voice or something. So I did go to a lot of cartoons and things that had voices in them. And for some reason, I went to see Flight of the Navigator.
Oh, nice.
So I went to see it, and after the spaceship gets screwed up, and of course it becomes this really kind of crazy voice. I go, who the hell is that? You know?
If you want to learn to swim, you've got to jump in the water.
Don't forget to feed Bruiser. 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Whoa! This can't be happening. I think I've gotten some stuff out of your head that has nothing to do with navigating this ship.
Now, remember, this is before, other than people who went to nightclubs, knew who Paul Reubens was or Pee Wee Herman. He hadn't really had his film yet. He hadn't had Pee Wee's Playhouse or anything. And I'm going, who the hell is that? And, I stayed to the end just to see the credits. Said Paul Reubens. Okay, well, that's a great voice. And I was like floored. I came into the work. This was at night, right? I came into the office the next day, and Tom Fitzgerald came in, and I said, Tom, what are you doing? He said, well, Tom, I don't care what you're doing. I had already looked up the times of when the movie would be playing at some movie theaters around back then. And remember, we didn't have multiplexes back then.
Or YouTube.
Yeah, nothing. You had to go to a movie to see it, and you were lucky if it was a duplex and it had multiple showings. I said, I don't care what you're doing. Right now, I want you to go see Flight of the Navigator because I found our voice. It's the voice of the ship. Just go. And he was like, well, no, I don't care what you just do it. Because by then, we're getting closer, right?
Right.
And he says, okay. So he goes, and he comes back, and he had enough faith, says, book him. So we booked him. Again, we're going to have George approve this. So I had a consultant who got a hold of him on the set of Pee Wee's Playhouse the first year. They were in production for the first season.
Wow.
Actually talked to him and came back to me and said, okay, he's interested. We need to make an offer. And I said, okay. And it went around and I said, so we ended up making a deal. Now, one of the things he wanted was a lifetime pass, which I said, I don't know that I can do that.
That's awesome. Go, Paul.
No, yeah. And I'm like, well, that became a bit of a bone of contention, but it happened. I went and they said, okay, that's fine. I worked out the language. So he would get a silver pass for life. It doesn't go to his heirs as long as the voice is used in the attraction.
Oh.
So sidelight, I'm sitting there going, okay, if they don't use it when they did the redo, great. He finally won't get his pass anymore. Well, they actually do have his voice in there if you look. So he still gets his pass.
Hi there. Welcome aboard. Rex.
I'm sure Tom did that because I know Tom and Pee Wee became friends, whatever. But we brought him in and he did the first big session. And we had to send a limo the first time because he had a manager at the time who was kind of an ass and wanted me to treat him like a star and all that. But the guy knew how to drive. After that, he said, don't do the limo again. I said, I'll drive myself. I'm a big boy. And I said, okay, fine. But we recorded it. Now, again, we have to get George's approval still, right?
Right.
So we set it up. We recorded it. We really liked it, but we sent it up to George. He loved it. And that's how Paul Reubens became the voice of Rex.
Wow.
Now, were you around when he did those recordings?
Oh, hell yeah.
And what were those like? And is there a video at all?
No. Well, if there is, let me think about that. I don't think we were allowed to record video because he was very concerned about that. There was some discussion of it, but I don't think we were allowed to. It's just again, he's an actor and you don't want that stuff getting out.
What did George Lucas have to say about the voice?
I don't know what he said. All I know is he approved it, and I was like, thank God, I finally got that off my plate.
Oh, good.
Did you work closely with George Lucas on Star Tours?
He would come in once in a while. Most of the time, he's up up north because the film is basically being produced by ILM, the main film. Now, I'm doing the commercials. Remember the fake commercials?
Star Tours is now offering convenient daily departures to the exotic moon of Endor. Come spend an afternoon or the entire day with the lovable Ewoks in their charming tribal villages. It's a fun-filled visit that you and your family will remember forever. Just ask for the Endor Express, available only from Star Tours. Non-stop flights leave every few minutes, so don't delay. Visit Endor today.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to produce those.
Ah.
I had to arrange to get all the other little video monitors. You say I had to work with the web video department. We got to produce this. I had to cast the lady who didn't know she was going to be there for 30 plus years.
I was going to ask about that. Is that the video that you watch while you're waiting to ride?
Yeah, the flight attendant.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just, and then we had a Jenny Mulholland came up with this cockamamie hairdo and did this thing, and she got like $440 for it, $400 for her and $40 for her manager.
Oh my gosh!
And of course, we had rights in perpetuity because that's the way we did things. And of course, it's there for 30 plus years.
Wow.
I guess when they opened the new one, they tracked her down and she came in. I've been long gone, but
she's
it was like
in the video for the new one as well. I think she's one of the
the whole
seating.
The seat
and that
belt.
was nice of them.
Yeah.
And I think her son is with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's correct. They didn't invite me back, but whatever.
Well, I do have a story I want to tell you, Mark, because we were there for the last ride of Star Tours.
Were you in the cab I was in?
Were you there
for
too?
The last public ride?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we made sure we got in that very last Star Speeder ride.
But there was some women who came to ride, and they had that hairstyle of that woman, and we just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, they because I was a reporter for the Orange County Register, and it's sort of a different role now with them, and there's sort of it's better now than it was then.
Mm-hmm.
But I went over to ride the last ride that I could. I wasn't part of the one that they had people paying for or whatever.
A special, right.
Yeah, because I had asked, and there's a reason, and I don't want to go into it publicly. But I was on board with some people that said, no, we want you there. And I rode, and it was I was in the last ride for the people who had waited in line.
Yeah.
Okay. In one of the cabs. And they actually had me ride it 3 times. And a couple of people, good friends of mine, said, this is one of the guys who worked on it. And that was really nice of them to do that. And,
wow,
it was fun. It was fun. Next question.
We must have been all in the same Star Speeder because we made sure to stall just so our Star Speeder would start after all the others did.
You probably were on one of them. I think I was on 4. Was number 4, unit 4.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Wow. All right. Well, what would you say the biggest hurdle was in bringing this from like a concept to reality?
It's a 4.5 minute continuous take, and it's in film, and this is before CG. So dial your Wayback Machine to how things were done back then.
All right, so let me ask you, what take did we finally see?
Well, there's 9 cuts.
Oh.
They're hard to find. 2 of them are obvious. They're in the, the hyperspace scene.
Right.
Okay.
And there's one in the comet scene, believe it or not. But shortly after we'd done all this, and it was like, okay, it was before we kind of had the brainstorming session, and we kind of had the long storyline. So it was time to get everybody together, the WED team and the ILM and George and company. So they all came down to us, and we had our facility at Tahunga where we could screen things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we ran the Return of the Jedi reel, and we had some concept sketches. We ran the reel, and Tom took them through kind of the long storyline. And let's see, Marty Sklar was there, Randy Bright, myself, Tom Fitzgerald, Carlo Bongiorno, who was the president of WED. From Lucasfilm, you had George, and you had Dennis Murin, and several others. And after we had the screening and then we had the thing, we all just gathered our chairs around in a circle just to start talking about how are we going to do this? Because nobody had ever done anything like this before, right?
Right.
And much less the fact that it was going to be a 70 millimeter film. It was going to run at 30 frames a second, all of these things.
Wow.
And not 24, but 30. So that was a little bit of a difference for ILM. So they start talking through the storyline a little bit, and George and Dennis were talking at one point, and I'm just kind of listening, right? I'm a neophyte. This is back in 1985, so I was 31 at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of knew how to do film. I got theme park films for some reason, and I think that's why Randy liked me, because I had no preconceived notions. I wasn't afraid to try anything. So here we are sitting around, and all of a sudden Dennis is talking about how we're going to make the film. And he's going, we can cut to this angle for this part, and then we can cut to this angle for this part. And then when the TIE fighters come ahead, we can cut to this angle. And I'm listening to this, and I'm getting fidgety. And Randy and Don Henderson, who was a production manager, worked with us at the time, is looking at me, what's wrong? And I'm not even paying attention to them. And I finally, they stopped for a minute. I said, okay, hold it. And everybody's staring at me. Of course, Mark Eades is about to put his foot in his mouth, right? And I stood up and I said, you guys don't understand. You can't cut in this. What do you mean you can't cut? And I go, somebody asked, and I said, look, this thing is you're on board the Star Speeder 3000. We knew that's what we were going to call it, or at least we were. I said, and you're looking out a window. The problem with looking out a window is you can't suspend that disbelief. It's not a movie. It is now a window. It's a point of view, and we can't cut. And I'm looking right at Dennis Murin, and he's got, Oscars holding up both ends of his bookcase, right? And here's this guy who's never produced a feature film in his life type thing, other than I've been around him, telling somebody like him how to make a movie, right? And I just stared at him. But I'll give him this because I was passionate about this, right? I knew I was right. And I was prepared to, fall on the sword. And I looking at Dennis, and he stood back for a minute. And he kind of stroked his chin. And George just was quiet. And then Dennis goes, gosh, he used another word, but he says, he's right. We can't. This is going to be hard. And it kind of ended the meeting in a way. They started talking. All I know is later on that day, we're back at WED, and I'm walking in the first floor, and here comes Randy walking towards me. He goes, are you sure we can't cut, Mark? And I go, Randy, it's got to be one point of view or it won't work. And they did it.
For a second, I thought this story was going to end with Dennis throwing a couple of his Oscars at you.
No. Well, he didn't have them with him, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's funny how they didn't really see this because it is a point of view from the inside of the Star Speeder, so you can't cut.
Yeah, they were thinking of it as a movie.
As a film,
like
right. That's
movie.
what they were best at.
And to make that whole willing suspension of disbelief, you can't cut. Yeah. Now, they get away with it more in the new one because they use the hologram and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you really still have to buy into the fact that, when you do the hologram, you've gone through hyperspace and you're just somewhere in space.
Yeah. You know what? Justin Smith has a question on our Facebook group, and he asks, how about official confirmation the man ducking at the end of the video isn't George Lucas?
It's somebody from ILM.
Okay. That's when the Star Speeder 3000 comes back to the bay, and everyone's ducking and jumping out of sight and doing shoulder rolls, and there's one guy ducking in a window we see.
Okay.
I think it's actually Dennis.
Is that Dennis? Oh, back when he had hair.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, and I haven't seen it in a while. Huh. Now, also, as we were finishing up Star Tours, George had cut off his beard.
Oh, really?
That's right, yeah, during the 80s.
It was very short, just for about a year and a half, he didn't have a beard. People couldn't recognize him.
No.
But the hair you'd still recognize.
Goodness.
Yeah, he had like this big pompadour. And
Well, what was interesting was when we were getting closer to done, we decided finally got to a point where we were good enough that we could run it once with real people. And, this is before the internet. So we had decided that we wanted to operate it for about an hour and a half one day just to judge reaction from real guests. There were still some things to finish in the attraction and the film, but we got one of the Star Speeders was programmed, and we're also worried about the puke factor. That's a lot of stuff to think about on this thing, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so George flew down, and we kind of had the fake commercials running out front, though the weird talic screen board wasn't programmed yet. And nobody could seem to find him. Everybody's waiting around, and we hadn't opened it yet. And in walks this man without a beard, and I'm just the only one in the queue line, and I'm watching my commercials. And this guy stands next to me, goes, "Yeah, I kind of like the way those commercials work." And then I realized, oh, it's you. Everybody's looking for you.
Wow, he's so quiet.
Yeah.
Lucas.
What was great about that was we opened the doors for about an hour and ran people through it. And we actually we would all kind of take turns writing in them just to get a feel for it. But we would also wait in the exit area just to, okay, let's get reaction. And most of us kind of hid, but I had my name tag on for some reason. And somebody came out and he sees me and he goes, "Can you tell me something?" And I go, "What's that?" "You don't really go anywhere, do you?"
That's the best.
Wow. What
Yeah, and one other, we heard this comment in passing as a group was walking out, and a guy goes, "Can you imagine how many miles of track Disney had to build underneath Disneyland for this ride?" So between those two, I knew we'd done it.
Yeah. What does that feel like? To
it feels
accomplish
good.
That? Okay.
I love. The one thing I always loved about working on attractions was just being there when real people could see it and getting the reaction.
Right.
That's fantastic. Another question I'm very interested in hearing the answer. Nick Brown on our Facebook group asks, what was the biggest change from conception to completion?
The name.
The name, really?
What was it?
Well, because remember, this is when Eisner and Wells had come in, and even though we were calling it Star Tours from day one, right?
Right.
For some reason, Michael had this thing where it had to have the word ride in the name. So we had to design everything with the name Star Rides. Now, we always recorded everything. We recorded it with that, but we'd also do the Star Tours recording. But the graphics, et cetera, were Star Rides for a long time, but we kept holding up production on it because we're like, we really needed it to be Star Tours. And, he would not listen. And then about 5 or 6 months out, he finally acquiesced and said, okay, you can call it Star Tours. So that was the biggest. I mean, things evolve as you're going through it, but it really conceptually didn't change other than we had to get from an 11-minute story to a, 4.5-minute plus load unload story. So that's an editing process. So there were a lot of places we wanted to go that we obviously couldn't. And they were supposed to be saved for the next film because the idea was we would produce a new film every 3 years and put a different one in each cab because it was filmed back then. But the darn thing was so popular, we were never allowed to do so. So I was very, very pleased when the digital projection got good enough that we could do that. And, that they could do multiple trips, not the same every time. Because we always wanted to go back and, okay, let's fly to Tatooine and let's fly through the Endor forest, all that fun stuff.
Fun.
So when it did close, how did you feel about that? Like a part of you was being taken away?
I felt like a proud papa and my kid's going off on his own. I'm not one of those who hates change at Disneyland. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, as you're well aware, there's a subset of people that anytime something's changed, Walt's rolling over in his grave, call the Preservation Society and all this. No, that's not what Disneyland's about. And I had that. I mean, I was part of what's called the second golden age of Imagineering in the 80s. But what was wonderful was when I was started out on the Epcot project at the studio, I'm working around people who worked with Walt.
Wow.
I mean, when I came to WED, got to work with Claude Coates. I was in some meetings with Herb Ryman. And everything I would always hear was Walt was always looking ahead. What can he do better? What would make it a better place? And don't be afraid of change. Try different things. And, even Claude Coates, before he retired, I worked with him on several things that didn't happen, but he was always looking into new stuff.
Let's take a break from our discussion with Mark Eades, the media producer of Star Tours, for some Skywalker shout-outs.
Shout-outs. Skywalker shout-outs. Which Skywalkers get props from here in Neverland? Who was tweeted out? Shout out. Who was photoballed? Shout out. Who was shared a post? Shout out.
I want to give a big shout out to Franklin Taylor, who is on Twitter at SpearXXI, and he always tweets after each and every episode that he listens to. He finds each guest that was on and also thanks them on Twitter as well. So I want to say thank you so much to Franklin because I know how much time that takes sometimes just to find the right Twitter handles and stuff, and I really appreciate that.
I'm going to second that because last Saturday we were tweeting while watching Rebels. I was tweeting while watching Rebels.
Yes!
And I know how long tweeting takes.
Live tweeting.
So Franklin Taylor, thank you. Thank you very much for doing that. It's great. And plus the guests know that, oh, hey, we are being heard. So it's always good to hear the feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. The guests know that they were on our show and people are listening. So
yeah. So if anyone else wants to do that and let us know, that would be fantastic.
yes. Now, I want to give a big shout out to our Facebook group because within our group, there's Skywalkers who are getting to know each other. And I know that some of you Skywalkers are not ever in the area. You don't live near us, here in Los Angeles. And you don't live near Walt Disney World, or you may not be there when we're going. So you guys are taking it upon yourselves to make your own meetups. So I want to just give a shout out to Amanda Bakken, who is trying to form a New England Skywalker meetup. So I don't want to say all the details here because I know this is within our group. So if you want to join our Facebook group and you're in New England and you want to see what Amanda is writing, please join our Facebook group. And how you do that is you go to Facebook, you search Skywalking Facebook group, and you request to join. And then that is step number 1. Step number 2 is you have to find us on social media somewhere and message us or tweet us and say, hey, I want to join the group. My Facebook name is blah, because some people are asking to join the group and I don't know what their Facebook name is, if they're on Twitter. Right. So, but please do that 2-step process because we're getting some really weird requests and we're not letting people in unless they ask specifically to us. All right? So Skywalkers, we want to keep it a safe, fun, happy group for all of us.
I didn't know there were so many Massachusetts Skywalkers out there.
Yeah.
Hey, Newton representing.
Exactly. So, yeah, she wants to create a Rogue One viewing and ice cream social or something. So it sounds really fun, and we wish we could go.
I want to go to that.
Right? So thank you, Amanda. And now, finally, I want to give a shout-out to Roku Depot. And Roku Depot is a website and a person, of course, Skuldrin. Now, RokuDepot.com is spelled RoQoodepot.com. And he does a weekly compilation and review of a ton of Star Wars podcasts. And he publishes this review every Thursday. So if you are a listener like us and you see there's so many Star Wars podcasts out there, you're not really sure what to listen to, or you're subscribed to a bunch but you don't have time to listen to everything every week, he actually kind of does a list of what people are saying on each show, and it really helps me pare down what I listen to every week because I only have so many hours in the week. So, and he does include us in the review. And last week, he was talking about episode 150, which, of course, was our Carrie Fisher tribute, as well as our David Collins episode. And at the end, he says that, he listened to the David Collins part, and he says that this episode is essential listening as Dave shares some great insight into the movie. So we want to thank you, Roku Depot, for telling us that, or just giving us a great review.
And for doing all the work in the podcast community that you do. You listen to all those shows, and he writes recaps and critiques.
Reviews, yes.
Yeah. So extremely, extremely great work and very labor-intensive.
Recap is a good word. He does a recap
and then
of the episode.
And then a critique.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's critique on Rob Dellinger's new Skywalker of the Week. And I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be wicked awesome.
Scott Bauman, take a bow.
Congratulations to Scott Bauman. Now, he had tweeted a while ago, and he said, one snack pack from RFR, next fandom goal is to be Skywalker of the Week.
We thought that was great. And if you want to follow Scott on Twitter, he is at ScotticusMax, which is a fun name.
All right, Scott. Check. Now, if you want to become Skywalker of the Week, Sarah, what would they do?
Well, what you have to do is you have to follow us on social media and then post about our episode somewhere that it was fun or it was great or recommend it to someone, and we will see that. Funny is a plus sometimes. Richard likes the funny. I like the sweet.
Not so much funny, but as humor. I like bringing the humor into the show.
What's the difference?
Funny is more like you're trying to be funny, but humor is just your personality, the way you see things.
Okay. All right.
That to me is the definition.
Joey
Jay Petty says humor plus sweetness equals locked in.
Absolutely.
You know what? Right, that should be our bumper sticker. All right. So now, we gotta mention that the Skywalker of the Week is written by our own under the weather Rob Dellinger.
Yeah. So wish him get well on social media. He is at Rob Dellinger everywhere you are. But to make him feel better, you can get our podcast soundtrack. Plug.
The Skywalking Through Neverland Awesome Jingle Mix Volume 1 by Rob Dellinger.
And it's available on all digital platforms, iTunes, CD Baby, wherever you go.
And if you want to make him feel extra special, call him
the John Williams of podcasting.
And now let's get back into our discussion with Imagineer Mark Eades, a driving force behind the original Star Tours.
Was there anything that was left out of Star Tours because the technology wasn't ready?
Tony Baxter really wanted to use high definition video.
Oh.
Wow.
But because he was like, it's in Tomorrowland. And he and I frankly got into a big battle about it. Because he said, it's in Tomorrowland, we should be showcasing the technology. And I said, it's not about the technology. If we were doing that, we would have made it a flight simulator ride. And we had to do a mock-up, which cost the project $30,000 to prove that HD TV wouldn't work. I knew it wouldn't work, not only because it was brand new back then, but it was because the video projectors they barely stood up to wear and tear a couple hours a day on a non-moving platform. Can you imagine the technology at the time? So, yeah, and that caused some bad blood between myself and Mr. Baxter, and I don't apologize for it because I was right.
$30,000 later.
We did a big mock-up. We mocked it up. I told the video guys because they wanted to make sure I wasn't biased in favor of film. I said, no, you guys don't understand me. I'm biased in favor of what makes what's right for the project. So I didn't touch the video side of the mock-up other than say, here's the screen, here's where Rex is. The lighting guys made sure we had it lit properly, and then we had another mock-up for the film side. And what we used was the Return of the Jedi effects reel. And they got in a Sony 3-gun projector and a GE Tellurian light valve, and they spent 2.5 days setting it up. The film projection guys spent about 15 minutes setting up the film projector. Well, then we brought everybody over. Tony and George Lucas came down and everybody, and we ran the Tellurian light valve, and Tony and Dave Melanson, who was the project manager, loved it because the video projectors didn't cost a lot of money. Well, of course they didn't. They were going to break down. He didn't care. And I'm like, yeah, and they were trying to talk themselves into, look how good it looks. I'm going, there's no contrast. You can't hardly see it. It's not going to be believable. Then they turned that one off and they ran the Sony one. Well, the contrast is better. Maybe they can make it a little brighter. Now, we spend 40 minutes looking at these video projectors, right? Mm-hmm. And they're trying to, and of course, the project manager loves it because the cost is cheaper. And all they cared about was opening day cost, which was a bad mark on WED's part. And no, you want this to work reliably, right? And the film projectors were a proven technology. Well, so then we get up out of our chairs, and I said, the only thing I ask is that everybody sit in the same chairs in relation to the screen that you were in. So we moved over to the next area. Again, we had a perfect, exact match mock-up. I signaled to the projectionist, roll it. He rolls it. Opens the dowser at the same point, so we're not getting any bright light, nothing other than imagery of Return of the Jedi. You couldn't have counted to 10 when Randy Bright stands up in the front and says, well, that's an easy decision.
Oh, wow.
But at the time, that video projection for that wasn't going to work. I don't care what they think because I knew it wasn't going to look good, one, and two, it wasn't going to stand up to the wear and tear. Right. And that was, and I believed, because I worked at Disneyland, that, I didn't want something that was going to break down right after they walked away from it, like later attractions did that certain people, Tony Baxter and company, made that still suffer to this day from that problem.
Yeah, it's not going to look as dated, too. And if we had the video Star Tours, it would look like every 80s sitcom.
Well, and then, of course, everybody and their mother started doing simulators, and they were all looking tacky and else, whereas ours stood the test of time.
Now we have another question here from our Facebook group, and Michael Moriarty, he says, did you ever think Star Tours would be as big as it has been and run as long as it has?
I always felt like there would be a Star Tours of some kind because I knew that maybe at some point George would get around to doing other films or somebody would. And obviously George finally got around to doing the 3 prequels, as he calls them. And, you can argue about whether they're really part of the Star Wars universe or not. Well, they are. They were made. Mm-hmm. And that Disney finally owns the universe is, I think, a good thing because George always wanted it to be Disney-owned originally, but the management before Michael didn't have the vision. So, no, I think it's great that it's still around. I think that proves that one of the things it definitely proves that those of us who were the Imagineers in the 80s were really trying to think classic, yet make it so cool that you'd want to do it again and again. And then when it started showing its age, they at least finally said, yeah, we need to update this. And they did. They could have taken it out. And I frankly wouldn't have had a qualm with that because it wasn't having a line anymore. It wasn't something people wanted to go on. As an aside, and this is an editorial comment, people were lamenting this Tower of Terror was closing down. Well, before people heard it was going to be closed down, nobody was going on it. It had a 20-minute line on busiest days. I want to remind everybody of that.
Yeah, the Twilight Zone just doesn't have the pull.
No, it doesn't. And frankly, the Tower of Terror here is not as good as the one in Florida.
No.
Basically after you do that little Twilight Zone room, you go into a boiler room where there's really nothing to look at. It's just dark and dank, and you stand around and wait like you may as well have waited in line to ride a freefall elevator.
Yeah, seriously. And speaking of queue lines, did you have any involvement in the Star Tours queue line with the fun vignette between R2 and 3PO?
Well, again, that was a script, and we just knew we were going to have, once we knew we were doing Star Wars, we were going to have C-3PO and R2-D2 out there, and Tom would float the scripts around. I would read it and make my comments, and Randy Bright would make his comments, and then George would make his, and George was God. So, but I produced the fake films. We decided we wanted to have those fake films, and then a guy by the name of Tom LeDuc, who worked in special effects at WED, and he's still there, came to me with this idea, well, if we do these, we should have them on some kind of a futuristic screen rather than just a standard rear projection screen. And he showed me these things where you could turn them on and off so they would be a rear projection screen and then they would be clear as if there was nothing there. That's why they were made that way originally. And that was me and Tom doing it. And I actually had to get one of those old fart guys from the studio machine shop. He actually took a picture of that grid with the lens that was going to be used in the projector so I could match the squares up perfectly to allow for, vignetting that happens when you project. I mean, I was so exact on that. Mm-hmm. It's lined up perfectly. When the grid pattern happened to bring the commercials on, it matched up perfectly to the squares. And we gave the programming to the show programmer, Davey Fighton, and he did a good job of matching them up too. So it looked like it was just showing up.
Yeah, well, once again, Star Tours is just so ahead of its time, being so immersive, like what they're doing now with the new Star Wars land. And everywhere you looked on Star Tours, there was something else going on between R2 and 3PO, the commercials. You look up, there's the Mon Calamari looking down at you.
He was originally one of the ones from the movie, and he was just on a little turntable that went back and forth. That was it.
Oh.
We were on a very tight budget for Star Tours, and we sat down and figured out how to do things. One of the things we were doing at that time, we had evolved from doing 2-inch 24-track analog tape for the playback of audio, which is what was used at Epcot just a couple of years before, right? We were now doing audio on laser discs. Because the analog tapes would occasionally fold up and mess up, whereas the laser disc would last. But instead of just running video, you would run, if you didn't run video, you had more space available, could run audio tracks. Well, each Laserdisc machine costs money. So we sat down and we go, okay, we have 4 simulators. So you had to have 4 Laserdisc players, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have to have all the audio. And we actually had to have 2 per simulator because we not only had to have all the audio, which was 6 tracks, but we had to have the one video, which was the one on the side, right?
Uh-huh.
And you also had to have the video for the safety spiel out front, right? So all of that. So then we had 2 monitors that were kind of playing garbage, so to speak, eyewash in front of C-3PO. So that's 2 more, right? Because of video playback. Then we sat down and we go, okay, how many audio tracks do we need to have in the Q space, and I'm what they call technically dangerous. I'm not stupid. You can't con me like some engineers try to do. I'd sit there and I'd ask them, and okay, what can we do to make this work budget-wise? And we kind of divided up that Q space into zones of audio action. So we knew we had to have C-3PO. We knew we had to have area sound. We had to have sync sound with the commercials, all this kind of stuff. Then we knew the next zone was when you went around the corner. Then we had to have the tracks for the two goose droids, etc. And we came out of that and we said we only need 2 Laserdisc players so we could stick to budget. And that was a big deal. The original Star Tours at Disneyland cost $34 million all in.
Wow.
Good. And that's everything. I mean, I'm talking hardware, software, film, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The media for Star Tours, which is everything you saw on video, everything you saw in the films, all the audio you heard, you're paying for Anthony Daniels, Pee Wee Herman, and all that stuff, cost us $3.4 million total.
Even that lifetime silver pass?
We don't have to cost that. That's an operational expense.
There you go.
10% of the budget was the media, which is all the films, all the videos, no matter what, and all the audio you hear.
And didn't each of these Star Speeders cost $500,000 each?
Something like that.
Wow.
And remember, we had to though we were using the Monsanto building, and we essentially didn't really change the queue line that much from what it was during Monsanto, but we had to still, blow out the back of the building so we could get 4 simulator cabs in there so we could get to a theoretical capacity of 1,600 an hour. And this is Disneyland, which was built back in 1955. So there was a lot of arm waving. Even though they rebuilt Tomorrowland in 1967, there was still a lot of arm waving. So you think you know where stuff is, and then you find out you don't. So I know when they were digging a trench to expand the building out on the backstage area there, and as far as they knew, every indication was there was not going to be a problem. They were digging the trench, and they dug right through the telephone trunk line that supplied all the telephones on the west side of the park.
No!
Oh, my gosh.
They didn't know it was there.
Yikes.
Whoa.
Yeah, just things that happen.
Wow, goodness gracious.
And yes, I'm actually staring at my basket. Remember those baskets?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, everybody got a basket, or somehow they got their name, and you got your initials and like your birth date or your phone number or whatever you wanted on something in Star Tours. And most of us took a basket. Mine was ME with 0827. And that was my birth date. And so when I heard about them redoing Star Tours way long time ago, but way back in like 2007, they were really starting on it. And I actually sent Tom a note and said, hey, if you're going to keep the baskets, great. But if you're not, wouldn't it be nice if everybody got their basket? And he thought that was a great idea. And he actually still had the spreadsheet with everybody. And everybody that worked on it got their basket back, including, if some of them had passed away and some had their heirs.
Oh, that's neat.
And these are the baskets that move around overhead in the queue line.
Those were the baskets that move around overhead. We actually, we did stuff just to make, you can do so much without having to spend a lot of money. Everybody says, well, it's all about spending the money and it's the details. You don't have to spend a lot of money doing details. You can make it seem like there's more there than there is, like the mirrors to make the pipes look longer. A lot of Star Wars was electrical junk, remember? George, it was a dirty universe, right?
Right.
And so basically, Chris Teets went out to these junkyards and bought crap. So we basically were all, hey, what do you want in your basket? Go pick stuff out. And that's what I did. And I put stuff in my basket, and then it went up there.
How cute is that?
And weren't most of the props that you'd seen, including R2 and 3PO and the other droids, original props from the movie, from the first Star Wars?
No. I'm going to talk that down right now. Oh. The C-3PO and the attraction, the R2-D2, those were not original. We were able to take them and make molds, but they were not the originals.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I know people love to spread that one. No. Totally false. Those were AA figures, so they had to be built properly to be AA figures.
What does AA mean?
Audio animatronics.
Oh, okay.
And
that makes sense.
And the other droids, those were all remolded too?
because at the time America Sings was still open, it was closed a couple of years later. To save a little money, we took 2 of the geese from America Sings, one from, I think, the South Scene and one from another scene. And we basically stripped them down, and they became the geese droid in the Disneyland Star Tours.
Right.
Okay? Of course, when they started building Star Tours around the world, they had to build more geese droids because they couldn't just keep stealing. So the geese droids, I don't know if they're still the same ones, to be honest. I mean, it's been a long time. But they were the 2 geese droids, as we called them, that you saw as you rounded the corner, the one down below and the one up above.
Right.
Those were actually out of America Sings at Disneyland.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, love those Easter eggs, which brings me to my next question from Matt Clifton, who asks, what are some of your favorite Easter eggs from the original and current Star Tours?
Adventure Through Inner Space, the Mighty Microscope.
Oh, right.
Where's that?
In the film.
When you're going in the original version, you go up the elevator and you're supposed to go out the flight path, and then you make the wrong turn and you go down into the maintenance bay and you fly around, right?
Uh-huh.
If you look carefully in the lower right-hand side of the screen, you can see the Mighty Microscope thing where you see the Omnimover partially miniaturized people on the Omnimovers getting ready to be injected into the snowflake from Monsanto through Adventure Through Inner Space.
Oh, that's cool. Unfortunately, I've never ridden the Adventures Through Inner Space. Oh.
Well, but that was what was in that building before Star Tours.
Right. I've heard.
So,
did they let you take anything home with you? Anything from Star Tours?
Besides the basket?
Well, opening day, no, not really. And I was, unlike some of the other Imagineers, I won't name names, who stole stuff and really shouldn't have it. I'm kind of an ethical guy, and I'm in the news business. I have to be ethical now. Well, I always was, except when you play poker with me. But I didn't really take anything. I did have a couple of clips of film at one time that I had around, but I don't even know where they are anymore. Just frames of film. Because I just have so much Disney junk around my house.
Yeah, I didn't want to use the word steal, but, just kind of take something home.
I know people did take some things, but I'm not going to get into that.
Okay. You know what?
It wasn't my bag.
I got to come clean, and I did steal a pair of the original Star Tours 3D glasses.
Uh-oh.
Well, I had so many of those. It was... You know what? We did a thing when we did Muppet Vision. We used those 3D glasses. Were in the Muppet Vision machine, and we also had a couple because Kodak sponsored it. We used the old plastic film cans and put yellow tape that said 3 and D on them in the machine. And I said, okay, I want one of those when we were shooting the film, and I got one of those. Big deal.
Well, you know what? At least you asked.
Yes.
Well, no, I was producer on that film, so it's like whatever. Who cared?
Now, what would you say is your personal, the Mark Eades stamp on Star Tours?
Gosh, the fact that it's a continuous take, commercials. They use so much of what my original treatise. I wish I had a copy of that memo still. That's the one thing I wish I'd taken home. That was like, you couldn't, because it was part of R&D, you really couldn't take that. You weren't supposed to. And remember, everything was memos back then,
right.
Not email. I wish I had that. I wish I had that original memo about the results of my research. I really wish I had that.
Just so you can compare what actually happened.
I know what I said.
Right.
I just wish I had the memo.
Yeah.
I doubt if it'll ever turn up. I know it would have been in Randy Bright's files, but he passed away. It would have been in Marty Sklar's files. It'd be in Tom's files somewhere, but I don't know if it's out there or what.
Well, going to those Disney museums, we found out that they never throw anything away, so chances are it's still floating around out there.
It's probably buried in a main file somewhere,
Yeah.
All right, now let me ask you the big one: have you, Mark Eades, ever been the rebel spy? Because I know I haven't.
No comment.
Oh,
you have been, haven't you? Many times.
I haven't been on it that many times.
And you were still a rebel spy.
I think they plotted with the public, because I was in the news by then. They plotted to make me sit in a chair that they knew I was going to get nailed, and it was kind of a crack up.
Oh.
Sarah's been Rebels by like 3 or 4 times.
I think it's 5 times now.
No, I call myself the Susan Lucci of Star Tours.
Yes.
Well, you guys go on it more than I do.
Yes.
I know, that's the problem.
We go on it like every time we go to Disneyland.
And still, I've never.
I cover theme parks now for the Orange County Register, right? And people, well, that means you ride everything all the time. And I go, well, no, I don't. Well, why don't you? I said, because I want to be able to look at it with fresh eyes when I'm there and enjoy myself when I'm with people like my family or whatever. I don't want to just be one of those, oh yeah, I've seen this, and kind of ride it and get jaded about it.
Right.
So I, generally speaking, do not ride the rides unless I'm there with family or friends.
Okay.
That's a good way of doing it.
Unless I need to go on it for a specific reason.
Right. Or like it's an opening of a ride.
Yeah, I do the opening, and then I'll usually go on it sometime after the initial whatever wears off. Because, I do, when something new opens, obviously I do get to see it. They really want to make sure we in the press get like an early show.
Coming up just in a year or so will be Disney's unveiling of Star Wars Land.
I think it's going to be more than a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wishful thinking.
Well, I mean, they want to get the river done. That's why they push so hard just to get the river done, and they want to get that reopened by this summer. They're going to try real hard. I think they'll make it. But the actual land, I think you're going to probably not see it till at the earliest fall of 2018, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the rumors we had heard too, but I just keep saying in another year or so just to make them go, oh, wait a minute, Rich is expecting this. We got to hurry up.
Well, remember where they're building this, it was probably, I kept hearing all kinds of different locations of where it would be, and not just through the mice chat rumors. Because they were looking at putting it in Tomorrowland. They really were. And a lot of people go, well, why didn't they put it there? Why didn't they put it there? Well, part of it is like that's fraught with opportunities for danger. Yes, you could put it over there and it would tear out a lot of stuff. But there's a B side to that a lot of people don't understand now. And I know this from my days, and I know it's even a bigger problem now. Okay, so when you do a capital expenditure, it's a different form of accounting than what's called an operational expense. Operational expenses are the people who staff the place every day to buy the food, the electricity, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. A capital expense is building the new thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. If you have to take accounting to get this, and I'm just, like I said, I'm technically savvy enough to be dangerous. Okay, so you might remember in 2007, they opened up Finding Nemo?
Right. Yes.
That was a capital expenditure, and not a cheap one.
Right.
Now, you want to take it out in 2015 to build Star Wars Land. That means it was only open for 8 years. What do you think the original lifespan for capital expenditure was? It wasn't 8 years.
No.
It was a lot longer. If you suddenly close something down that was supposed to have a lifespan of, let's just say for sake of argument, 15 years, 7 years early, what do you have to do? You have to go back and restate your cost, because you now have to eat the entire cost in that year, in those years. And that's a big hit to your tax. All of a sudden, you're going to owe more tax money.
Yikes.
Okay. And you're talking millions here. Okay. They're not going to want to do that. That's actually a business decision. And I understand it. And it does impact a lot of things at Disneyland more than any place else. Anytime they want to do something, they go, well, have we fully capitalized the cost of this?
That makes sense.
Way back when they opened Epcot, they actually found out that if they opened Epcot for 4 operating days to the public before the end of their fiscal year, which was Disney's fiscal year ends on September 30th, right? So they actually opened Epcot Center for 4 continuous days before the end of the fiscal year. That allowed them to start capitalizing the cost, not only in that quarter, but in the previous year prior to it opening.
Sneaky.
Wow.
Well, but I mean, but Epcot was way over the original budget, so that why not? You can get a little bit more of a tax break. Well, that's one of the problems with doing it in Tomorrowland. They were looking really hard at possibly putting it over at California Adventure. There was a lot of discussion on that, I understand. But they really wanted it, and that was one of the approaches. Well, let's put it here and here, and they, of course, what to do with Star Tours is still an issue. But
Right.
they just decided, no, we wanted it. The resolution back then was we wanted it bigger, and actually Tom Staggs was part of that discussion, and he wanted it bigger. And it's kind of sad that he's not there anymore, and I don't get why the board didn't think he could do it. But he really loved theme parks. He got theme parks, I will say that. And they said, no, we wanted it bigger. And the other issue they had is, and this is an argument that I could have. I mean, part of me says, put it over at DCA because they, Cars Land and all the stuff they did definitely helped them a lot in terms of trying to get more attendance over there. I think if they had put Star Wars over there, it would have helped them even more so. But they also were fighting the fact that Disneyland had nothing new other than Finding Nemo. I mean, brand new in a long time.
Right.
So then it became, where do we put it? And they decided, well, let's put it back there. I might be part to blame because I did a ride review of the Rivers of America and said, this is the most boring attraction here. There's nothing to look at. You can get mad at me. But you go on this thing, there's nothing happening on the boat. You barely get to see the Indians, who it's so politically correct now. There's nothing. It's a dull ride.
Unless you just like boats a lot, which,
And everybody, well, it's nice to relax. Okay,
Yes.
if you want, but really, I mean, they didn't even put jazz bands on the boat like they did in the early days. So I'm like, it was a dull ride, and I said so in a review. I'm not afraid to. I don't pull my punches, guys. I'm pretty blunt. Anyway, I guess they realized, it takes up a lot of real estate. So they said, let's squeeze it down a little bit, make it a little bit shorter ride, and also make it more interesting to look at. And I've seen what they're doing to along the river on the backside, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be interesting to look at, whether you're on the river or even if you're walking the trail.
Ooh.
And it's going to be cool. You have a lot more going on now.
When Star Wars Land is finally built, there's been a lot of talk about what to do with Star Tours. Do we keep it in Tomorrowland? Do we move it to Star Wars Land? Does it really fit in Star Wars Land? What's your reaction to that?
I don't know. I'm from a creative standpoint, it's okay to keep it. I'm not sure, because you're going to go on a ride on the Millennium Falcon that people will want to ride a Star Tours anymore. And because I'm not as privy to all the details as I once was, it's a creative argument I've had with myself and a few people. And so part of me says, oh, keep it. It's not a bad thing. I have a feeling they're probably going to leave it open for a while, just because they did do the redo and they need to make sure they're capitalized out enough. And then I have a feeling they're going to see, well, what happens?
Right. That's what I'm thinking. They'll probably see if
because
attendance goes down.
Well, they're going to watch. I'm sure they're going to watch it. But at the same time, that's a 1,600 an hour capacity. That's a pretty good capacity.
Yeah.
And what to do with the carousel building? My opinion is nuke it. But but that takes a project to do it against too. A lot of people don't. That's the other side of the accounting thing that people don't understand. Why don't they tear down the people mover track? Because it would be very expensive to tear it down, and it can't be used for anything because it doesn't meet ADA codes. That's the argument about the Skyway. It could be grandfathered in. No, it couldn't.
Right. And it's very nostalgic too.
Yeah. So maybe they're thinking, okay, down the line, we'll probably finally bite the bullet and we'll do some new stuff over there that will involve tearing down the carousel building, maybe finally nuking the Utopia, which I wish they would, and putting something in more futuristic.
Yeah.
And once you have an actual project to do it against, then you could tear it down because it makes it more economic sense. But it's also that people mover track's very difficult to take down because of where it is. It runs right down through the middle of the space.
I'm just so happy about Star Wars Land, and I cannot wait for it to open. It's like something we've always been dreaming about. I know as a kid, I always dreamt about Star Wars attractions and amusement parks, and Star Tours was the first step. Now we have Star Wars Land, and just the possibilities are endless and infinite.
Well, I love it too, and yeah, maybe the Universal Harry Potter stuff is driving Disney to do bigger immersiveness. Great, I love it.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to Guardians of the Galaxy because it's something new, it's something different. If they can do other Marvel stuff over at DCA, great. There's a lot of that stuff over in that area that's not being utilized very well. So going to Disney theme parks, except for Epcot, is about escaping. So why not?
Yeah, so to wrap this up, what is something that you've never revealed regarding Star Tours until now?
To the public?
Yeah. Anything about Anthony Daniels' recording sessions?
Oh, he was wonderful. He let us shoot video. He gave us he wanted to guide the programmers as to how our C-3PO moved, et cetera. So he did the entire performance on video to give Davey Fighton something to work with when he programmed the figure. He was wonderful.
Wow.
Great guy. Pee-wee did great. He loved doing it. That was all. What was neat about the project was because we were sort of running it under the radar because the studio folks were all big on the whole Captain EO thing, that we were just, like I said, we had a memo form done up that said Star Tours in spite of EO. So we kind of snuck in, and we were actually done. We were ready to open it, and they wanted to open Captain EO first to get the splash from it, and then open Star Tours. So we could have opened in '86 easily.
Oh.
Yeah, we were done. And they said, no, just keep tweaking it a little bit and all that, because they wanted to get a big splash out of it. And looking back, I understand that now, I guess. I think they could have gotten a big splash out of all the new things in Tomorrowland at once. The George Lucas section of Tomorrowland or something. And I think that would have been, looking back and going, they might have gotten a bigger splash had they done that. But whatever.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's what we call the Dave Melanson door.
What's that?
And then there was the Bob Galt bathroom. Well, remember how I told you everybody got their initials and their numbers or whatever in there, whether it's their birth date or their phone extensions?
Right.
Well, Dave Melanson was a project manager. He actually used to be a supervisor at Disneyland, and he was my supervisor for a while at Riverbell Terrace. Well, he's physically not as tall, and we didn't really include him in the list initially. He got a little bit miffed with us that we didn't have him included. So we made sure we got his initials and phone extension, and we put it on this little access door that goes from one side of the building to the other, but the door is only about 4 feet tall. So that's known as the Dave Melanson door. And then Bob Galt, who was another supervisor at Disneyland, who sort of was associated with it. He heard about all this, and he was like, well, I'm the area manager or whatever, and he got miffed, but he wasn't included. And just to show you what we thought of him, we put his initials and his telephone extension over the employee toilet.
Wow.
There's some fun nuggets. Now, if any of our Skywalker listeners out there want to get a hold of you on social media to ask any kind of follow-up questions or just to stay in touch with you.
I'm on Facebook. I'm very open about where I'm at. I mean, if you follow me, I'm on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Mark A. Eades, MarkAEades.
Okay.
And I'm on Facebook, and I'm just my name. And yes, I occasionally get Disney fans who take me to task for stuff and insult me, and I don't care. If they get too obnoxious, I just ignore them, or I really don't block them. I just delete their idiotic stuff.
Well, you won't get that.
I had a guy raking me over the coals because I wrote an article about the Tower of Terror closure, and I use the term cast members, but I use it, I work at a newspaper. So just cast members, right?
Uh-huh.
You're supposed to capitalize the C and the M according to him.
Oh, gosh.
Well, we don't. We're not Disney. We're the Orange County Register, and we follow AP style. And he didn't like that. He basically said, if you're going to use it, then just use the word employees instead of doing a half-assed job of it. And, of course, he doesn't give me his name. He's just somebody, some email at yahoo.com. And then I put that on Facebook, and I said, I don't know who this person is. Somebody actually looked him up, found out that he'd posted a complaint on another website, not about that, but about something else, and he had said his first name was Keith, and that's all I know. It's going to be like that. I'm going to tell you right now, I work for the news, and if you're going to be a jerk, I'm going to plaster the fact that you're being a jerk on Facebook, because I believe a light should be shined on people that are jerks.
Well, you know what? You won't get any Keiths over here at Skywalking Through Neverland.
Yep.
Everyone is just so full of positivity and love and the whole family vibe that you're safe here.
Right.
Well, we can't wait to hear what you have to say about the new Star Wars land opening summer of 2017, Disney?
No, it's not going to open until at least 2018 and late 2018 at the earliest.
I know. I'm just trying to put it out there subliminally.
Not going to happen. I mean, they're barely getting the basements of the buildings done and the foundations.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's a year of construction on the buildings alone, much less installing the show.
Right. All right, Mark. Well, it's been a great 30 years since Star Tours first opened, and for all the Skywalkers out there, we just want to thank you for everything that you brought to this amazing attraction.
Thank you very much.
I will talk to you later.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm going to Florida in a week, so look for reviews of Florida versus here.
Ooh, fun.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Now, while researching for our discussion with Mark Eades, we uncovered some really fun nuggets that I didn't know about Star Tours.
Okay, which
Now-
means they might not know about.
I know, and I'm really happy to share this. Now, at the top of the show, we mentioned that that Star Tours takes place after Return of the Jedi,
Okay.
but the Starspeeder 3000 helps with the destruction of the Death Star. So, do the math.
Well, both Death Stars are destroyed at this point.
Exactly, but now we have a third Death Star.
Wait, what?
Exactly. Now, our friend Leland Shee, he stepped up in 2013 and said that this Death Star in Star Tours was really a habitation sphere disguised as a Death Star and a plot by an Imperial warlord to distract the New Republic.
What's a habitation sphere?
Yeah,
So-
that's a sphere
Oh, so people
that you can
live
live
on
in.
it.
Yes,
So it's like a planet,
it's like a
but it's a
man-made planet.
Right, right.
Almost like the Star Killer base.
Why don't you just call it a man-made planet, not a habitation sphere?
You know what? You get on the phone with Leland Shee and you ask him that, okay?
You know, I'll tweet at him.
So, you know what? I'm thinking maybe to tie it all in together, that the New Order had known about these habitational spheres. And they said, hey, we can do that now and call it Star Killer Base.
But the Starkiller base was the other way around. It was a planet that they dug out of.
Right. So, okay, it was the same thing, but
different.
But different, yes. So you can see where I'm going with this, that it wasn't a full planet. It was like a cyborg planet. So
Okay.
maybe they got the idea from this habitational sphere.
Habitation
and said,
sphere?
Hey, you know what? We can go somewhere with this. Okay, I'm trying to make sense of this, okay?
Okay.
All right, well,
Just never say
work with me.
habitation sphere again.
just work with me on this one. Okay, yes, and we'll talk about Paul Rubens now. Now, Paul Rubens, once again, was the voice of Captain Rex, the pilot for the Starspeeder 3000. And at a convention, at a Comic-Con a few years ago, someone was asking him how he felt that his voice was taken out of Star Tours when they did the 2010 reboot.
Oh.
Yeah, and I found a clip here of him talking about this, and he even mentions the passes that Mark was just telling us about.
Oh, the Silver Pass.
The Silver Pass.
Wow.
I didn't even know they were taking my voice out of Star Tours until I was in a situation like this and somebody asked a question, just like you're doing right now. Said, Pee-wee, how do you feel about your voice being taken out of Star Tours? And I was like, what? I didn't even know.
Well, actually, you can still kind of hear your voice in the queue. Like, Captain Rex is like short-circuiting. He's like going, hi there.
Is there any good news?
But my question is,
I'll tell you one thing though, before that you didn't ask, that I'm going to tell you anyway. As long as my voice was used in the park, I had a free pass to go anytime I wanted, me plus 3 people, and I went all the time. I go all the time. Well, I was upset. You can imagine how upsetting it would be to have your voice ripped from the George Lucas ride and then have the pass ripped out of your hand.
So I wonder who the cast member was at the gate who had to take away Paul Rubens' Silver Pass.
It wasn't him. It was Secret Squirrel.
Oh,
They got security on that one.
darn you, Secret Squirrel.
Yeah.
Not only after us, he's after Paul Rubens.
Ay, ay, ay.
Now, at a cost of $32 million for Star Tours, how many Disneyland parks do you think they could have made for that in 1955?
Inflation. I don't know, like 4?
You're close if you had said 2.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, $1955, if you had given them the same money to make the parks as they had to make Star Tours,
right.
they could have made 2 parks.
Wow.
And
In
this-
1955, though.
Yeah, and this is just one attraction.
Wow. Okay, I didn't think about it like that. One attraction.
One attraction
is like
versus
twice the price of Disneyland when it was made.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's mind blowing. Now, how many Disney theme parks do you think has the attraction, and can you name them all?
I'm gonna say 4.
Okay, you are correct. You're halfway there.
Yay. Okay, so obviously Disneyland, Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World, Disneyland Paris, and then I guess Tokyo.
Tokyo Disneyland.
Yeah.
Shanghai.
Oh,
they got Launch Bay.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't get Star Tours, not yet.
No, not yet. They just got Launch Bay.
Well, we've been to 3 of those 4.
Yes, we have.
Yay.
All right, put that on our list.
And Disneyland Paris has that awesome X-Wing out front.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Ah.
All right, with that, are you ready for some advice and wisdom?
Of course.
Then you're in luck, because up next we're going to hear from our fairy-podmother, Margaret Kerry, in her Ask Tink segment.
Hello, Skywalkers. This is Margaret Kerry, the official fairy-podmother on Skywalking through Neverland. Some of you may even know me as the animator's reference model for Tinkerbell in Walt Disney's original Peter Pan film. I am here to give advice and wisdom and spread to you my faith, trust, and pixie dust. Or if you just want to ask me a question about my career or anything from Tinkerbell's point of view, then I'm here for you too. Let's start things off today with a question from Chicka Fan. So, Chicka, boy or girl do you imagine? Okay, he or she who asks, what are your thoughts in all the changes made to the 2 U.S.-based Disney theme parks, which will bring new lands and experience to the masses? So when's your graduation? I mean, you use words beautifully. I think it's wonderful. I think it's absolutely marvelous to reach out, and a lot has to do with one of the reasons that I was chosen to cast as Tinkerbell, because I can hardly wait to see what's around the corner. What's new? I love the old. Don't misunderstand. I love the old, and I praise it and all the rest, but with the imagination that the Disney people have, I can hardly wait. I mean, it's a gift. It's really a gift. And one day, I was riding with some folks. This was a few years ago. They were picking me up from the airport in Florida, and I was driving to another town where I was going to a Disneyana club to do a show. And these 2 men were sitting up in front, and I was sitting in the back seat, and they were telling me, each other what was wrong with Disneyland. They were telling, now they're in Florida, but they're telling me on Disneyland. And they're, oh, yes, well, they did away with this. Well, they couldn't do that. Well, they should have done this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I finally spoke up and I said, well, at least you don't have to travel to the West Coast then. And they looked at me, over their shoulders and said, why not? I said, well, you don't go to Disneyland, do you? Well, yeah, twice a year. I said, you've just spent 20 minutes telling me what's wrong with it. Why would you do that? Well, no, it's this, that. And I said, well, stop it. It's the most wonderful place on earth. And just enjoy and stop tearing it down to other people. And they turned around and said, yes, ma'am. I love it when you're older. You can get away with all kinds of. So I just think it's fabulous. Sometimes they miss, but maybe 1%. Oh, come on. You got to give them a little slack. So, thank you for that question, Chickafant. I love that. Next up, let's hear from Rachel Hayes, who asks, who's your favorite fairy other than Tink? Mine is Rosetta. I'm sorry if we've already answered this question. I've never heard the answer. Well, I've thought through the question, Rachel. I don't think I have answered it before, Because actually, Tinkerbell is very, very fond of one particular character with the fairies, and that is Queen Clarion. Tinkerbell, who bounces around, and she just admires the queen so. With her beautiful regalness, I guess is the best, and how she has pixie dust around her all the time, and she's so calm. And Tinkerbell, of course, it isn't. She's just the opposite of Tinkerbell on the nicest scale. So, and the other thing is, Rachel, you know what it is when you've got a group of girls together? You can't like one better than the other. You just can't. It doesn't really work out too well. So Tinkerbell has just bypassed any of those problems. And you know what? When they first started out together, there was an unnamed fairy who was not liked very much, but that has changed quite a bit. That was one of the lessons that they had to learn. So Queen Clarion, whose name means trumpeter, she is the one who signals and is at the head of a procession. And Tinkerbell just thinks she's grand. Thank you, Rachel. Now, Mike Hammond, it sounds like a detective, doesn't it? Mike Hammond. I think there was a radio detective. I think so. Well, he wrote in and wants to know, when you were modeling as Tinkerbell, did you have issues with unwelcome advances? If so, how did you deal with it? Well, I never had one little bit of problem when I was modeling for Tinkerbell. Believe me, on sound stages in other studios, yes. Although the Lone Ranger, when I did that show with all rough and tough crew and cast, Clayton Moore and Jay Silverheels, they sat me down and chatted with me, so I never interfaced with that cast or crew. They were looking after me. I was not really looked after over at RKO. They called me Miss Sex over there when they tried to change, which they did. They changed my name when the picture was over. They were like junior high schoolers. But at Disney, I will tell you, I talked to Catherine Beaumont about this also. And Catherine said the same thing. She said she never heard an untoward word. Mr. Davis would not put up with it. Jerry Geronimi would not put up with it. Of course, we didn't walk around in our one-piece bathing suits, you know. It was the time when we wore cover-ups, and we were very aware of what was going on. But dang, I was cute, you know. If I'd walked around at Columbia, who would have known? But anyway, no, thank you for the question, because it was all-male crew. It was a very different time, and we've come a long way, baby, and I really appreciate it. Women in Film, the organization hadn't even been put together yet. So that was Mr. Detective. That sounds like a detective would ask that question. And now finally, a question from Denise Power, and has a pressing question. What is more powerful, the pixie dust or the happy thoughts? Well, you use them in different ways, so they're equal. Pixie dust is what you shower on everyone else, and you get some of it blown back on you. Happy thoughts are for you. When you wake up in the morning and you say, oh, I got to do this, that, or the other. No, I get to do this, that, or the other. I get to go see that. I get to look at different flowers. You sound like a ninny to yourself, but you know what? Happy thoughts work. I have a story in my new book, Tinkerbell Talks, Tales of a Pixie-Dusted Life. This woman walked up to me, and she was trim, about 35, I guess, darling little pixie haircut. And she was shaking, and she was crying. And I thought, uh-oh. And she said, you and Tinkerbell saved my life. And I thought, uh-oh. And I said, really? And I'm holding her hand, and it's shaking. She said, yes, about 2-3 years ago, I weighed 300 pounds, and I had to have both knees replaced. And I was in a wheelchair. I was so depressed, I just wanted to die. She said, I have to do something. I've got to think happy thoughts. So she had Tinkerbell tattooed on her lower leg in color. Beautiful job. Pretty good size. I'd say maybe a 9-inch. So it wasn't small. And she said, every time that I thought a bad thought, I'd put my leg out and say, nope, happy thoughts. And then her daughter gave me 2 pictures, which are in the book. And she said, this was my mother. This is exactly what happened. Tinkerbell and you saved my mother's life. So that's what happy thoughts are, so powerful. You use them. Now it bubbles over. You can't help that, poor thing. But it bubbles over with pixie dust. So they're both powerful. Use them. And remember that James M. Barrie, who wrote the book in 1904, the play and the book in 1911, and I have a quote from him that opens up my book, which I'd like to give you. And the quote is, memories are God's way of giving you roses in December. And he knew all about pixie dust, and he knew all about happy thoughts way back then. So remember, you have power every day that you wake up, and so does Tinkerbell. So I guess, Skywalkers, that's all. Yep, that's all the Tink time we have for today. I would like to thank Chickafant, I'm not laughing, Chickafant, Rachel Hayes, Mike Hammond, and Denise Power for sending in their questions and concerns. If you would like me to spread some faith, trust, and pixie dust, send your questions to share at skywalkingthroughneverland.com. Bye now.
Now, before we wrap up, let's check in with Donald Wicks and hear his Skywalker moment.
Hey, Skywalking Through Neverland. This is Donald Wicks, and this is my Skywalker moment. Now, obviously, fandom is extremely important to me. Star Wars, Harry Potter, and all that goodness. But I actually met my wife through the Twilight fandom. We met online, and our first meeting was at a Twilight convention in San Francisco. After many months of dating, and I decided to pop the question, the only place that I thought would be the place to do it would be in front of the castle at Disneyland. So I got her in front of the castle. We took a picture, and then I told the lady to wait a second, pulled out the ring, got down on one knee, and there you go. Thankfully, she said yes, and because of that, Disneyland has been even more magical for me and my wife, and I look forward to each and every time we go back. Thank you for listening, and Neverland on Alderaan.
Well, that wraps up episode 152 of Skywalking Through Neverland.
We would like to thank Mark Eades, Donald Wicks,
Margaret Kerry, and we want to give a special shout out to DK Publishing for sending us all these cool Star Wars books, which we love to share with our Skywalkers.
Absolutely. Now, thank you, Skywalkers, for joining us. And you can find us on social media. We are at Skywalking Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, and Snapchat. We also do Facebook Live from time to time, including from the red carpet of Rogue One, courtesy of Donald Wicks. So thank you, Donald.
Yeah, thank you to all of our Skywalkers who help us put together the show each and every week.
Yes. Now, we are part of the Retro Zap community, where you can find some awesome shows like the Deucecast Movie Show,
Brews and Blasters,
Beltway Banthas,
and Talking Apes TV, where Joe Pitti just said that this was an Urko-tastic episode. No, he said it was an... Oh, Joey, what did you say? I wanted to repeat that. On Talking Apes, when something is good, we call it Urko-tastic.
Yes, you do.
And Joey just said this episode was an Urkosode.
Urkosode?
This was quite an Urkosode. Thank you, Joey.
Is that a good thing?
It's Urko. Of course it's a good thing.
Okay.
Unless you're one of Urko's victims.
Yabba dabba doo!
Then, how are you getting Urko and Fred Flintstone mixed up?
Because it's done by the same voice actor.
You know what? How did I not see that? How did I not see that? All right. You just put me in my ape corner.
Yes, we did.
Now, stay tuned right after the credits to hear some conversational outtakes that didn't really fit into the show, so we still wanted you to hear them, so here they are, along with some bloopers. And after that, you've got to always remember to...
Neverland on Alderaan.
Some imagination, huh?
To our Skywalkers and Tweetwalkers, thanks for listening. Skywalking Through Neverland is created and produced by Richard and Sarah Woloski. Original music by Rob Dellinger. Creative consultant Mark Augushowitz. Technical advisor Peter Heitman. Facebook administrators Donald Wicks, Joey Pittman, and Norma Heitman.
Skywalking Through Neverland is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Any sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is property of Skywalking Through Neverland, all rights reserved. Sorry, had to be said. One more time. But now here are things... One more time. But now here are things we want to share.
Nice. Oh,
Told you it's been a while.
Bubba's joined us. Hi, Bubba.
Hey, Bubba.
Yay. Do. Oh, creating the music. I love it.
Boy, it's been a while since we've done things we want to share.
Hulk Hogan still rocks.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. All right, now, pick up the book.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Joey P makes a great point in that maybe she has this character so the other characters can defeat it. You know,
yeah,
like in play.
But I think Joey just also said that she was on Coruscant. So you know what? You're absolutely right.
What?
Okay, hold on. I gotta flip to the Jyn Erso page because
here, wait, is this it?
By me saying that her home planet was Lamu may not be entirely correct because there was that scene where the flashback scene of her on Coruscant. Here it goes.
Oh. Well, she was born in Vault.
Okay.
She was born on Vault. Remember the planet that was being taken over by the Empire?
Right. Okay, so the good thing we have this visual dictionary right here to prove me wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, there goes that. So, yeah, this book is extremely helpful. I was trying to fit in a segue.
Chica Fent is now joining us from Inception because they're on Facebook and on Periscope. So which one's which?
Oh, look at that. There's more Doctor Stranges out there. Oh.
Oh, any of you who've joined us, here's Ahsoka. She's so pretty. I love her. Look, Ahsoka. And the one time Matt Clifton's not on Periscope.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
All right, so we're coming out of the Skywalker of the week, and...
I never get louder. I just start cursing.
Oh, this is a family show.
Okay.
Well, that'll be fun.
We are going to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Star Tours.
God, that's right. It has been 30 years.
Yeah, it's going to be 30 years.
You had to tell me that.
Well, we would have told you in our intro here.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there we go. That's better.
All right, so...
That one pissed me off.
Oh, I can see.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think
it's a good philosophy.
Next to go, Bug's Life.
Oh, no, that's
See you
the
later.
kids like it, though.
Yeah, but you get Marvel over there, you get Spider-Man rides and Captain America rides.
Oh, right now they have, let's see, they have the Muppet Vision Theater building, they have Stage 17 where they used to have the food courts. They've got enough empty buildings over there that they could put plenty of rides in without even touching a Bug's Life.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
That's very, very true.
Well, and you know, it's like when I do a review of an attraction, I'm doing it as when I write for the Register, I write straight. And I think people know that my reporting is pretty straight, no bias for or against Disney. Because of my past, I have to be very open about the fact that I worked for Disney overall for 21 years.
Right.
I do a review of a ride, and they had me doing reviews, and I will probably be doing some more in the near future, where I actually go ride the ride again, and maybe more than once, because I want to get video of it and photos of it, etc. And then I write, it's a 2-part review. The first part is just a description of the attraction, whatever it is, And then the second part starts out with the headline, A Former Imagineer's Review.
Nice.
Being very upfront. And again, as long as it's an opinion, but don't be nasty about it. Because opinions can be, a review can be, okay, this doesn't work as well. Here's why, in my opinion.
Right.
I did a review of Pinocchio, and I'm sure Tony didn't like me for it, which basically said this ride sucks. I didn't say it that way, but it's a boring attraction because it's not an experience. I believe that if a good attraction, if it's any kind of ride-based attraction, needs to be an experience. But he's done good ones. Splash Mountain's an experience. Indy's an experience, other than the fact that it breaks down too much.
All right, Mark. Well, once again, happy 30th anniversary, and let's see another 30 years, blah, blah, blah. Neverland and Alderaan.
Meh. I wasn't done. I was doing a second take.
That wasn't me.
Oh, my gosh.
I didn't know that. I'm in trouble. I'll go to Chronic Corner now. We had finished, and then we had done that little ADR. I'm wrong. I don't know why I'm wrong, but I'm so wrong.